Trae Young just dropped a career high 56 points and 14 assists. That is like the most assists a player has ever gotten by dropping over 55 points. I mean, just an incredible game. And the Atlanta Hawks still managed to lose to a depleted Portland Trail Blazers. Right now, Portland is like 13th in the West. They've lost like 9 out of the last 10 games. There was no Damian Lillard, no CJ McCollum. You know, the two best players on the team were out. And they still managed to lose. Now, Atlanta right now is sitting at the 12th seed, at a record of 16-20. And it's very odd for a team to fall this far down, especially since they went to the conference finals last year. Hence, they might have overachieved last year, but people, projected them to at least be a second round exit in the playoffs, maybe make it back to the conference finals, depending how the cards lay out with COVID this year. So what's going on? So Atlanta's perimeter defense is pretty terrible. They've never been a strong defensive team, and that's why people are surprised they made it as far as they did last year, including myself. And like the Portland Trail Blazers, like Anthony Simons had a career night with 43 points. Norman Powell dropped 30. Nasir Little had 25. Nurkic had a strong double-double, like 20 and 15. And it's just like they should have won that game, especially with Trae Young dropping 56 and 14. So their biggest issue is defense, especially their perimeter defense. They let a lot of threes go in by the Trailblazers, like open threes. So they need to do something about that, and that's like their biggest concern. There's no reason they should have lost that game, even with Trae Young not having a career night. I mean, just with their regular roster they had now, they should have won that game. So it's time for them to make a change. Just maybe just little adjustments. There's not really anything major they can do. So I came up with a couple trades they could make that could potentially bolster their perimeter defense, so they can get more stops to lead to more offense. Because they're set on offense. You got Trae Young, offensive phenomenon. He's averaging 26 and 9 or something like that. You have Cam Reddish, who's really stepping up this year. You have DeAndre Hunter, who has missed a lot of time, and he's also a very solid defender, but he has missed a significant amount of time this year. You have John Collins, who is a great offensive player, not great in the defensive ball. You have Clint Capella, who's a great defensive rebounder, but he's not really a shot blocker. He's a rebounder and like a vertical lob threat. That's pretty much Clint Capella's game. And then you have Kevin Huerter, who's not a good defender, but can shoot the lights out. You have Deron Wright off the bench, and you have some couple other nice offensive pieces, but they're really lacking defense. So the first trade that I have is obviously going to be a Ben Simmons trade. You've probably seen this trade, a Ben Simmons trade machine 100 times this year, but I got one for you. So I have Ben Simmons going to Atlanta, and you have Danilo Gallinari, Okongwu, the sophomore power forward for the Atlanta Hawks, and then you have Cam Reddish, who's again taking a big leap this year and really proving that he can be a great starter for a team. Give him a year or so, maybe reach all-star potential, but I think his place in this league is a very, very good starter, kind of like Tobias Harris for the Sixers. And then obviously I would think Atlanta would need to throw in a couple picks. And maybe, if it doesn't work out, their pick could be very valuable this year. So that could be a little, enticing for the Sixers to make this trade. Now, I think it's a good trade for the Atlanta Hawks because, Ben Simmons is what he is by now. I've been saying this for the past 2 years that Ben Simmons will not develop a three-point shot. A player is who he is by the time of this career. We've seen players like Lonzo Ball, Brook Lopez, DeMarcus Cousins, and I'm sure there's many other players out there who've developed a three-point shot, in year 2, year 3, just very, very efficiently. And Ben Simmons just hasn't done it at all. He hasn't shown any improvement whatsoever, and he's been in the league for 5 years now, and he's being paid a max contract. So I think what he is who he's going to be. But he's a very, very great player and very, very effective on defense. I think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year, but it's very hard for like a guard to win it because centers are just put in more of a defensive spot. But with that said, he's a very solid perimeter defender, and he can play make, which Trae Young, is the main playmaker of the team. But if Trae Young is off the bench or on the bench, Ben Simmons can take the playmaking role. And then he, offensively, I think he's more just like put him in the dunk spot, maybe give him a few ISOs, but he's really not going to affect your team that well offensively. But defensively where it matters, and if Ben Simmons can bring his defense to Atlanta Hawks, they're going to be a very, very scary team. Yeah, so that's the first trade I got. That's kind of like the biggest trade of the video. Just want to get that out of the way. Now I got a couple minor ones here. The next up is actually to the Portland Trail Blazers. Now I don't know exactly how effective this trade would be, even if Portland would take this trade. So I have Robert Covington going to the Atlanta Hawks for DeLon Wright and Jalen Johnson. Now, DeLon Wright is kind of getting older, I believe, so he's not really going to help them rebuild. Jalen Johnson is, 20-year-old prospect. He's averaging 2 points this year. But he's 6'8", like he has good size. He could be a good wing if he develops right. And Atlanta maybe throwing a second-round pick, but Covington's really not doing much for the Portland Trail Blazers. He's a very, very solid defender. He used to be a great 3-and-D player in Philly and then in Minnesota, but after that, he just lost his three-point shot, and he's not really an offensive threat anymore. But that's not what Atlanta needs. Atlanta needs good defenders, and that's what Robert Covington is. I feel like he could affect their game very well. And for Portland to hang on to him, I mean, if Portland does take on this full rebuild, or if they even want to retool around, Damian Lillard, which may not be likely, they have a good young asset in Jalen Johnson. Maybe not a good asset, but he's a young player that could possibly develop for them in the future, and then a second-round pick that could be used as an asset as well. Now, moving on to the final trade, it's to my Boston Celtics, and I just think this will work both, good for both teams. I'm sending Josh Richardson over to the Atlanta Hawks for DeLon Wright and Kevin Huerter. Now, I think the Celtics would need to throw in like a pick, maybe a first rounder for this, because Kevin Huerter is young and he's a very good shooter. But Josh Richardson, his offense is starting to pick up a little bit this year. He's having a better offensive season than he has the past couple of years. And he showed flashes in Miami and Philly about, what his offensive potential can reach. But he's really great on the defensive side of the ball. That's who's going to affect the game the most. Like I said, Celtics are probably need to throw in a pick because Kevin Huerter is a good young asset. And he's also, a very, very great shooter. He's got a great mid-range and a great three. And then DeLon Wright to kind of make the contracts match. So those are three trades I think Atlanta could make to, increase their roster just a little bit. Ben Simmons want to be huge, but that one's pretty unlikely because Philly over there think they got a LeBron James on their team. They want Jaylen Brown, Damian Lillard. They want these top tier players for Ben Simmons, who's really not that top tier anymore. Like, it's just people know what Ben Simmons is now, and I think Philly is just being a little ignorant with his value. But I would love to see Ben Simmons move to this Atlanta team. I think that would increase their potential to a whole nother level. So those are the trades. Yeah, so pretty much Atlanta's problem is they need perimeter defense, and they need it now because they're running out of time to salvage this season. So I think at the trade deadline, they're going to make a couple moves to make this roster better defensively. Like I said, they don't need any more offense. They just need a couple defenders on this team to really, really make their potential, championship level team. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next